Am I live? It says live. Okay. It looks fuzzy. I don't get it. Because it looks fine here. Okay. Let's close that. Let's close this. The bit rate should be fine. I don't understand why the bit rate is low. Why does it look fuzzy? Okay, that's fine. I don't understand. It's 2, okay. I think I did everything right. It should be up there. It just seemed too easy to just go bar and it's there. But I don't think I did anything wrong. I just did the thing. Oh, that's weird. Can anyone confirm that it's working? Anyone hear or see me? I don't know what's happening. Yeah, that works. Yep. Share. There we go. 2 people, I think. I don't know if it's bots or not. But I'm just going to chattity away on my own and just look at my spreadsheet. I should probably have this open here. And then live chat. Pop out chat, please. Put that there. Bam. Okay, all set up and ready to go, I think. So it's going to work and show my spreadsheet. And let's see if it's going to show my spreadsheet to make sure that this all works. It's not showing anything. Okay, OBS shows it. There we go. Okay, so it's just super delayed. Okay, so I'm good to go whenever y'all are. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, meanderings, musings, internal debates, if you will, anything, Islanders prospects, shoot me a line. I'm just going to be looking at my spreadsheet. And if we got nothing going, then, oh well. It was worth a shot. Put this over here so I can see what everyone's saying if they say something. There we go. AJ, do you think the Islanders will trade their 2024 first round pick? Yeah. I've resigned myself to, as long as Lou Lamoriello is the GM, they're going to trade their first round picks. I've resigned myself to that, and I'm very much okay with it so long as who they are getting helps the team immediately. I don't want to send a 2024 first round pick for a rental. That sounds like Banana Land's crazy to me. That's a bad idea written all over it. But I know, not just because I had this conversation, but my friend Ryan and I have talked about this before. And a guy that we are really hoping we can land with that 2024 first round pick is, I'm just trying to bring up the page here, and for some reason I can't find it, is Clayton Keller, right? So like Clayton Keller right now, if we go to the cap friendly page, Clayton Keller is 24 years old, $7.15 million until the sun explodes, and is he's a point per game player this year at 82 points. He's over 82 points, 78 games, and 36 goals. That's the kind of guy that oh my God, there's so many ads. I don't care about setting a first round pick. I really don't. If that's the type of target that we're acquiring, send all the first round picks. I don't care. Otherwise, you keep it, right? If you're just going to be making a rental play, it's not worth it. Keep it. But if you're looking to add pieces for not just now, but the future, right? Like Bo Horvat was a piece now, and then we signed him for another 8 years, so he's here for a while. You send those first round picks, whatever, specifically if they're going to be later ones, right? So I do think that they're going to trade it, assuming Lou Lamoriello is still around, and based off the question that he got about the contract, I think he's going to be around. What do you think, AJ? Do you think that they're going to keep it? Anthony says, do you think Wally is traded in the offseason? I don't want them to. I'm not going to say, please trade him, because I think there's a lot of untapped potential there with Oliver Wahlstrom, who's still quite young, right? Let's bring up the Islanders page here. I've clicked on the wrong team. For some reason, my internet is really slow. So Oliver Wahlstrom is, where are you? You be an LTIR, my friend, 22? Yeah, 22 years old. There he is. Turns 23 in June. This guy's still young at 6'2", 211, and he's got so much potential, right? Like, this is just gross. But then you look at these numbers here from this season. 16 points in 35 games. When we do the math, 16 over 35 is just under half a point per game. Times 82, that's a 37-point player. And that's only being played, 35 of 82? less than half the year. So he had the other half to really turn it around. I really think that Oliver Wahlstrom can be a 20 to 25 goal scorer and a 50-point player at the NHL level if it all comes together. I think they're going to give him next year to figure that out and for themselves to figure it out, and then they might think about trading him. But as it stands now, like, think about next year. We got a 20 to 25 goal scorer potentially coming in for free. Love it. I wouldn't rush to trade him. And then AJ says, is Salo going to be traded to dump Bailey? If that's what it takes, do it all day, every day, and twice on Saturday. Robin Salo is stalling, if you will, at the AHL level. Let me just bring up his stats here. Robin Salo. Oh, God. The other day on the Bridgeport broadcast, God bless the announcer who's taken over for Alan Furing, kept pronouncing it Salo, and I couldn't, for the life of me, get through it. I kind of cringed every time he said Salo. I just couldn't do it. But anyways, looking at Robin Salo's stats, overall 13 points, 34 games, already not that ideal. He had 20 and 40 last year. And it hasn't really he put up 2 today, which was great. They still lost, but whatever. He has struggled for consistency. He hasn't been the same player we saw last year or even at the start of the year. I think he's having a hard time dealing with the fact that he's in Bridgeport and he wants to be at the NHL level. But if it's going to take Robin Salo to move Josh Bailey, yeah, you do it. There's no questions about it. And so Anthony says, I don't think we are making the playoffs. Look at the schedule. Isles, Pittsburgh, and Florida. We have the harder schedule. Okay. I don't want to look at just everyone's individual schedule because that would be long. But Tankathon does this great thing where they have the remaining strength of schedule. And maybe you've already looked at it. And I haven't looked at it in the last couple of days since the podcast for not Eyes on Isles, my gosh, for Up the Turnpike just on Sunday. But if we look at the East, the New York Islanders have the easiest schedule, right? So the highest is hardest. So the higher, the better for tanking. And the New York Islanders are the lowest. They have the easiest schedule remaining in the Eastern Conference. The Penguins, not far back though. But Florida, all the way back there. They have one of the tougher schedules remaining in the Eastern Conference, right? They still have to play Carolina and Toronto. We just got to play Tampa, and we got a bone to pick with Tampa, right? We lose to them 5-0. We got something to make up here. I wouldn't be so sure that we won't make the playoffs. I'm not saying they will because it's kind of close, but the Islanders are definitely more in the driver's seat. And last I checked, Pittsburgh was down 3-0 and Buffalo. Yeah, so Pittsburgh down 3-0. You can see right there. And Buffalo's tied 1-1 with the Florida Panthers. Buffalo got the first goal in the game, and that usually is a killer for the Florida Panthers, at least during most of the season. Sam says, hey, what's up? What's up, Sam? AJ Piazza, I think the pick gets traded in a similar trade. So for those who didn't catch, he's talking about the 2024 first-round pick. I think the pick gets traded in a similar trade like Romanov, someone who is young but helps now. Yeah, and I'm totally okay with that. Like, Romanov took a while to get going, but that was a worthwhile pick or trade in my opinion, because the guy they're bringing up isn't going to be ready to play for at the earliest 2 years, and you need help now. Of course, we could get in the argument of, well, it's time to tank. I don't think the Islanders are there. And unless the tank is on and a change needs to be made, like a holistic one, you can trade those picks for something like that. Anthony says, I was not happy with Lou's press conference. So arrogant, really dislike him. Yeah, it is arrogant, but to be fair to Lou, kind of. I don't know what Ethan was, and I assume that's what you're asking about. I don't know what Ethan and even Andrew, what we're hoping to get out of those questions. Hey, Lou, what's your contract like? You're gonna ask a guy about his contract when he explicitly says, "I don't talk about myself." I don't know what you're hoping to get out of it. You just hope you catch him on a senior moment. It's not gonna happen. Lou could have been a little bit better in how he answered that, but I just don't know what they were thinking they were gonna get out of that. Sam says, could we see a spotty Ishikov call-up? I don't think so. Unless there's an injury, there's no way Ishikov comes up. He should. but he won't. Again, unless there's an injury. Salo has been bad. He isn't shooting the puck well. He's not shooting it that well. He looks like he keeps shooting for rebounds or deflections, which is fine. But at some point, you just got to get it on the net. If we go back and look at Robin Salo here. Robin Salo. My God, I can't type. Robin Salo AHL, and we can see his shots on net to see if he's actually getting them there. I don't feel like he is from what I've seen. Robin Salo had 5 shots, right? That's shots, right? Yes. And 5 shots the other day, and it had a good stretch right here. Look at those games where he's at least getting 2 or 3 shots on net. But there's a lot where he's not. I'm not going to say that Robin Salo is missing that too much. It really does seem like he hits the net quite often. But he's trying to finesse it maybe a little bit too much. And so I think what we're seeing the last couple of days from him is that he's maybe a little bit more relaxed. And so he's having a little bit of a better impact. We saw he had 2 points today in the loss to Springfield. But I just don't think he's adjusting to being sent down and staying down this long. And then Samuel Bolduc basically taking his spot. Did they win today? They did. Oh, you're right. They won in overtime. See, for some reason, all I remember is Springfield being up 3-2 and being like, game's done. And then I totally forgot that Chris Terry scored an equalizer and then Andy Andreev scored an OT. I totally forgot. Thank you, Sam. On point. Love it. Are you worried they won't be able to sign Jeffries next summer? Yes. I'm not. If I had to give it a percentage, I would say I'm 45% worried. 65%, that's not the math, right? 55%, there we go. Confident he'll be an Islander. Lou Lamoriello doesn't just let these guys go. The only college-based prospect he has just kind of let go, not even signed to some sort of ATO, is Ben Mirages, who left Providence in some mysterious and murky circumstances. I'm still not sure what the hell happened there, but that's the only one since Lou Lamoriello has been a GM of the New York Islanders that he has let go from the college scene. Every other one of them that I can recall, unless I'm missing someone, and please tell me in the chat, he's at least signed to an ATO or has been signed to an AHL contract, or just an NHL bridge deal, or ELC. So I don't think he's going to let this guy go specifically with how he's doing. There's a path for Alex Jeffries. If that's his worry, there is a path to the NHL through the New York Islanders for Alex Jeffries if he just keeps getting better as he's done so far. And back to Anthony says, Wally's skating ability and his ability to get open space to me is the big reason why I don't think he'll be what everyone thinks he can be. That's a fair point. That's absolutely a fair point. When I was writing something recently for Oddshark, I was talking about Nail Yakupov, and the one big criticism that Nail Yakupov had in terms of not being able to translate his game to the NHL, at least from a structural perspective in terms of what he does structurally to his game or the structural aspect of his game, is that he didn't have that skating ability to create that space. Because he had a great shot, but he wasn't able to create the space at the NHL level to unleash that shot, which is kind of the problem with Oliver Wahlstrom, where he's not able to get that space necessarily. But I think Wally just needs to be a little bit smarter. He doesn't have to skate better. He just needs to know where to be, right? Like Alex Ovechkin is not a great skater. He's a fine skater. But he knows where to be. And that's kind of what Oliver Wahlstrom needs to do to get to the next level. On point, Penguins are down 3-0 right now. Yes. Florida, last I checked, Sam, was still tied 1-1 with Buffalo. So that's something. Abaddon, what has your model said about Lundqvist? From what I've seen, his NHLE grew nicely this year and could get a nice boost in points if he gets more minutes in the SHL. No lies detected with that. I'll show you what I've got on my model here. This is easier to go this way. Alexander Lundqvist. So he's taken a 3.3 bump to the NHLE from last year because he spent the season at the SHL, right? There's no Allsvenskan for him. There's no super elite. He's straight up 52 games at the SHL level with 11 points. But you're right, the ice time was low. He's playing third and fourth line most nights. Sometimes I saw him on the top line, but I think that's the coach just like throwing random BS and seeing if it sticks. It didn't. But Brunis has some things to address, and we'll see if Alex Lundkrantz has a larger role next year. Because you're right, if he does have a larger role, that could help boost his stock. Because right now, I'm not too keen on Alex Lundkrantz. I don't think he's got pro material at the NHL level, or sorry, North American level. Sam says trade guys like Hutton, Salo, Skarek, not picks. Sure, but you're not getting a whole lot for those guys. The most valuable asset there is Salo, and like we said, he's kind of at the AHL level. Hutton has been fine. He's a borderline NHLer, probably basically like Salo. So those two guys, you're not getting much. And Skarek, I have not seen a lot to like. He had a good game today against Springfield, but that was the first good game in a while for him. So you're just not going to get a whole lot of value for them. So yeah, fine, trade him, but you're getting like 4th, 5th round picks back. And while Lou has seemed to be able to do a lot with 4th and 5th round picks, or at least identify talent in that range, it doesn't do anything for the club type of thing. But if you're saying it rejuvenates what we've got, then I'm okay with it, right? Because you're shipping out old blood and bringing new blood in that maybe is more talented. Fine. Okay, I can see that. Anthony says Florida has 2 teams that will have already clinched. I think Carolina and Toronto will rest players ahead of Florida those last 2 games of the season. So you've thought well ahead. That's a good and interesting point. Let me just take a drink here because my mouth is getting dry. That is an interesting point because you're right. They've both clinched. They could rest players. Toronto isn't going to doesn't have to worry about home ice advantage. I think they've got that locked up. So there's not a whole lot to play for left on the season for Toronto. So you're right. They might just kind of mail it in over the last couple of games because it doesn't matter. And that could be a problem for us. So good point, Anthony. Anthony continues, I'm not moving any picks to trade Bailey. They need to convince him to retire and take a front office position or just put him in Bridgeport. Yeah, I don't disagree personally. I just think that Lou Lamoriello disagrees, at least with the last point. I don't think Lou wants to have to put him in Bridgeport. I think Lou would rather trade him, move a 3rd, 4th round pick, whatever, and something else to move $5.5 million, or sorry, just $5 million off the books for next year. But ideally convince him to retire. I'm not sure how easy that is in the CBA. Like, he doesn't have that obvious injury that Johnny Boychuk has, but I'm sure they can concoct something. I'm not sure if Bailey's going to want to go for it, but Bailey also has to realize like the path for him going forward is you're playing on the Arizonas, you're playing on the Columbuses, and while Columbus is maybe a little bit nicer of a destination than Arizona because it's a college team basically, is that what you want to do in the last couple of years of your career, or do you want to like transition to the next phase ASAP and stay where you've already established a life with your wife and I don't know how many kids, at least 2. So like, yeah, that's a good point. Max says, hey, Mitch, Budzik and Witherspoon have been call-ups. What about Chalowski? Any of these guys ready to bump Mayfield next year? No. The simple answer is no. Chalowski he doesn't play the same game as Mayfield, first off, but he's also been at the AHL level. He's okay in transition, which is obviously an upgrade on Scott Mayfield, but he doesn't play that same game. And so that's going to be like the 1-for-1 swap just isn't there. If we had one in the system, it would be Grant Hutton. That's like the closest comparable. I'm hoping one of these guys that they signed, like an Aiden Fulp, really kind of turns out. We haven't seen him yet at the AHL level. We've seen Travis Mitchell, but not him. So I would like to see what we've got in Fulp because I think that could be the guy to replace Scott Mayfield, assuming the ceiling is as high as it could be. Anthony says, no, wasn't talking about his contract. The question was about Varley. Oh, right. The Varley question from Andrew Gross, which I also, because all he answered was, how did Lou put it? I don't know where that question comes from, which you knew where it came from. I don't know what Andrew was hoping to get out of that. Like, hey, Lou, do you regret not trading a guy that you wanted to keep? No. Maybe the question should have been, hey, Lou, did you have a conversation with Varley at the trade deadline like you did with guys like Chara and Green? And if so, did that conversation go the same way as the other guys? I think he could have bridged that maybe a little bit differently, and Lou may have been able to give him a better answer. You're right, Lou could have approached it differently, but I just don't know what Andrew was trying to get out of that. I don't know what kind of quote he was hoping to get from Lou there. Sam says trade Bailey for a third. I'm fine with that. I don't know if we're going to get a third, though, unfortunately, because Bailey has... The stock has fallen, and it just keeps on falling, baby. AJ, Budzik and Holmstrom should be regular NHLers next year. I think Holmstrom is good enough on the third line. Yeah, I'm fine with both of those, clearly. I think the better player out of the two is Samuel Bolduc, if we're not really kind of like debating positions type of thing. The ceiling for Samuel Bolduc seems higher than it does for Simon Holmstrom right now. But Simon Holmstrom is younger than Samuel Bolduc. He's got basically an extra year to kind of grow. So I don't think we've seen where things can go yet for Simon Holmstrom. But I think we can rest on the fact that he is an NHL player. He's an NHLer, not a great one, I'm going to say, but he's at least deserves to be in the show. Sam says, Pavanka's looked decent in Bridgeport, and I can see him playing in Worcester next year, but are we going to see Kryger play? Yeah, that's a good question. I thought he would be in by now. So Jacob Pavanka looked okay as like, a third-line center for Bridgeport a couple of days ago. He was fine, didn't stand out, did a very Michael Dalcolian performance, which is okay in your first pro appearance. But we saw Travis Mitchell today and not Christian Krieger, which I thought Christian would get a spot at some point because he's there. But maybe they just don't like what he's got to give. But I don't know. I think Christian has more to offer than what we're realizing. He's a good physical shutdown guy in the right system. And I think Bridgeport might be the right place for him, specifically with Brent Thompson, behind the bench. Can we see him play in Worcester next year? Yeah, probably. Reese Newkirk stays at the NHL, at the AHL level, and then Jacob Pavanka goes down to Worcester. Yeah, it makes sense. Sam says Fasching is going to get paid next year. What do you think? What do you guys think Fasching's getting? I think it's going to be like 1 to 1.25, which he'll obviously take. He will gobble that up all day, every day, and that'll be great for us. I'm just going to hit the timer on this because my camera dies every half hour. That would be a great value add for us at $1.25 million. Do the same thing for Zach Parise. Money in the bank. Anthony, with Nelson now 31 years old, do you think next year we move him to wing and get a younger, faster center? What worries me is the age of our centers. Nelson is 31, Pajot 30, Suzuki is 31. No centers in the system. The last part is what worries me the most. Our last center was Aturatu. Now, Rusnishnikov has played center, but he's just, I've said this for years, that he's just not a center at the North American level. And, well, Brent Thompson has believed the same thing, and we see the results of what's going on with Rusnishnikov this year. So I don't know what they're going to do there. You're not wrong to want to, or to worry about the age of these centers. We've probably got 2, maybe 3 years at most of like peak value type of thing. And even then, I think that's stretching it. But we don't have anyone else to kind of like take their place coming in. That's going to be a problem going forward. They're going to have to draft someone in the second round. Hopefully, I imagine they're going to take a center this year, but in the second round, who knows? Who knows, right? Like, sure, we got Aturatu in the second round, but like that was lucky, and COVID and everything helped that. We don't have that this year. It's going to be a full scout, and so going to be a hard time finding value in the later portion of the second round. AJ says, I also like the Fulp signing. Big fan. I really like what Fulp did at Cornell. I like what he brings to the Bridgeport Islanders, and at least on the ATO he's on right now, and maybe what he could do in the future because he's on an ELC. I like the potential. Just like Sam says, Fulp is going to be good, and so is Mitchell. I liked what Mitchell did today. It wasn't very offensive, but he did some defensive stuff. So both you guys are right that I think Fulp is going to be pretty good. I don't know why we haven't seen him yet, but I imagine we see him soon. I'm going to drink here. And don't worry, it's not alcoholic beer. I don't drink alcohol anymore because of the ticker. Got to keep that in tip top shape, right? Okay. So On Point says guys like Jeffries who were drafted before their college career and have a big junior year sometimes can't resist waiting another year to be a true free agent. Isles will need to pay up. Yeah, they're probably going to have to give him a max ELC or close to it. It's going to be a tough negotiation between Jeffries and Lou Lamoriello, but I have a hard time seeing Lou Lamoriello not get his man. Like, we drafted you, we followed you through your development. I have a hard time seeing them be like, well, all right, well, we risked it. If they were going to have to pay up, they should have paid up now. Like, what is not even 925,000, right? Like, that's the max a prospect can make, and we know full well that Alex Jeffries isn't going to start playing NHL full time. He's not making that 925. He's going to make the what, $70,000 to $80,000 a year. Come on, what are we talking about here? So if that was the case, he should have done it this year. So, but that kind of speaks to what we've been saying, right? Both, I assume you've been saying it as well, that we're kind of worried of what happens with Alex Jeffries next year. Sam says Durando has been great and is still super underrated. Yeah, Arnaud Durando just keeps doing the thing. I don't know. Did he get 2 points today again in the win? I got to remember that, right? It's a win. So we see 47 points in 63 games, 10 more in one fewer game than last year. Just excellent stuff from Arnaud Durando. If we look at his game logs here, he's on a 3-game point streak with 5 points. And then another 4 point. Like, just look at the points he's been putting up of late since going back to Bridgeport. Usually you see a guy play well at the NHL level, get sent back, and just kind of, mulls it over going, poop. Not Arnaud Durando. Arnaud Durando came out firing with Bridgeport, and he hasn't stopped. Trying to prove to the Islanders, like, you need to keep me up ASAP. Where am I at here? Anthony, I really like Bolduc. I think he could be a top 4 defenseman. He is smart. Already, to me, is the best passer, and his shot is hard and seems pretty accurate. That last part is the key. You're 1,000% correct. He's got a really nice shot. He doesn't have to cork it like Ryan Pulock to get it on the net with enough velocity to trick a keeper or to evade a keeper. He's got it figured out. And so Samuel Bolduc is just going to get smarter. He's already a big body at 6'3", 200 some odd pounds. So, like, he can play a heavy game. He can skate really well for his size. So the only concern I had with Samuel Bolduc before his call-up was, can he be physical enough? And in game 1, he proved that he could. So I was like, I'm good. I'm good. Samuel Bolduc belongs. Just do it now. What are we waiting for? I don't need to see Sebastian Aho anymore. He's fine, Sebastian Aho, but the ceiling for Samuel Bolduc is higher. I totally agree. He could be a top 4 defenseman. Sam, Mayfield has made too many poor mistakes this year, and that makes me think he won't be re-signed. I wouldn't be so shocked because of your next comment where he says Lou scares me. I wouldn't be so shocked if Lou Lamoriello re-signs Scott Mayfield because, like, he's a good penalty killer. Yes, he is, but, like, he also puts you on the penalty kill a lot, and his first pass, my God, his transition game is just not what it should be. He needs to be on a different team that isn't so transitionally challenged as the New York Islanders because it stands out like a sore thumb. We have a hard time getting out of the zone without Matthew Barzal, and then we have Scott Mayfield making first-time passes that he can't connect on. That's a big problem. Anthony says, although I like Mayfield, we can't re-sign him to a contract of $4 million or north of that. We have too many holes. Also, we need to sign Sorokin and Dobson long-term. Yeah, if we just look at that real quick, at the Islanders cap situation, if we will. So next year, the Islanders have, I know where I've skipped over the players, but there's a point to this. They have $6.9 million. And that's assuming it's got a $1 million bump already to 83.5. So we've got the bump. I'm just trying to zoom in to get less ads because they're annoying. So we got $6.9 million to play with, 80 of the 83.5. And when we scroll up, expiring this year, Sorokin will need a new contract for 24-25. So we don't have to worry about that impacting the cap now. So we're okay with that regard. But we do need to re-sign Oliver Wahlstrom. That's not going to be a whole lot. Samuel Budzik needs a deal. That's not going to be a whole lot either. Who else? Engvall, that's probably going to be around $3 million, but that's, you soak that in. So with the other two guys of Hudson Fashion, Zach Parise at maybe $1 million, we've got 5. Oliver Wahlstrom's probably not going to take a whole lot. So we definitely can't afford to pay Scott Mayfield what he would get in the open market. And I know I've accounted for most of that $6.9 million, but that, of course, also includes this guy here who most definitely will be traded. We're going to free up another $5 million in terms of cap space, and we'll be fine. But we can't take that $5 million in savings, if you will, and spend it on Scott Mayfield. We need to spend it on a backup goalie and a maybe cheaper and more effective right-handed defenseman for the bottom pair. So did I lose my spot here? So basically, yeah, I agree with you, Anthony. Not even basically, I absolutely agree with you. We can't re-sign him for $4 million because we have too many holes. Sam says Sorokin 50-year deal. Yeah, till the sun explodes. Sign him until the sun explodes. He can never return to Russia because he's constantly under contract. AJ, agreed Budzik is better, but some people don't think Holmstrom should be on the team. Yeah, well, I get it. I don't know if you're one of them. But some people are still mad that he was drafted in 2019. And it's fair. The Islanders shouldn't have gone for Simon Holmstrom in 2019. They should have got Tomasino. They should have picked up Philip Tomasino. If we look at it now, Hockey DB 2019, I can't type, draft. And we'll just look at the comparison of number of points currently at the NHL for the guys drafted at 23, 24, 25. So let's skip this here. So we got New York Islanders, Simon Holmstrom, 47 games played at the NHL level with 6 points. The very next player, Philip Tomasino, 101 NHL games, 49 points for a not very good Nashville Predators side. And then Connor McMichael hasn't played a lot, 75 games, 18 points. So they should have taken Philip Tomasino. And it wasn't a stretch to suggest that they would have anyways. They definitely, reached to grab Simon Holmstrom, and it's not really paying off. Unless Simon Holmstrom just absolutely goes off and Philip Tomasino falls back a little bit, the Islanders made the wrong choice. So where am I at here? On point. Fasching will get 3 years, $4.5 million. Engvall, 3 years, $9 million. So I can't do math real quick. That's 1.5, is it not? 4.5 divided by 3? Yeah. That's totally fair. I'm totally okay with that. $3 million for Pierre Engvall, who's basically a half a point per game player, is he not? With us in a short sample size, mind you. He has 8 points in 14 games. That's more than half a point per game. I could do some math well. 8 divided by 14 times 82. That's a 47-point player. Yeah, give him $3 million. Give him $3 million. There's no question. And that's not a big bump. I think he's making 2 and change, 2 and a quarter. I love it. Find myself again. Noah, you think Chris Lamoriello is the next GM, or you think ownership is smart enough to find a new GM once Lou is done? I like the term Frito there. I get it. I think that the ownership is going to do its due process and interview more than just Chris Lamoriello. They will interview Chris Lamoriello, and Lou Lamoriello is really setting it up. Like the comments he made in that presser was saying like, oh, how is Hudson Fasching done? Well, that's a Chris job. That's all Chris, baby. That is pumping some tires hard. And I also love how you just called him Chris Lamoriello and not like my son, Chris Lamoriello. He's really trying to distinguish the two. Like, yes, we have last names that are the same, but maybe we're related or not. Love it from Lou. AJ, Engvall and Fasching should both be back. It would be wild if they're not. Honestly, there's no reason not to bring those guys back. Sam, no, not Chris Lamoriello. I get it. Although I do like the moves he's done for Bridgeport. Right? Like he brought in, obviously Hudson Fasching, Chris Terry, Andy Andrioff. Like all these guys have worked out. It hasn't been flawless, but he's done well. And if that carries to the NHL, then maybe that's pretty good. But then again, I think that Chris also just surrounds himself with good scouts, because he's not the one going out and scouting these players and saying, I have to get them, and does all the framework. There are pro scouts out there within the organization that doesn't for him. Sam says, if Edouard Sale falls past pick 10, the Isles got to trade up. The Isles won't. I'm not disagreeing with you, but like they're not going to move up that far. They just don't have the access to do it, and no one's going to take like a package of, here's a bunch of mid-round picks to move us up like 40 some odd spots. I just think that's just too rich for our blood. If it's maybe he's in the late portion of the first round, yeah, maybe try to package 2 second rounds and get him at like 28 to 32. But unless he's probably going to be taken before that. Anthony, what worries me with Lou, I'll be saying he's coming back. He does not win on trades anymore. Other GMs always seem to get Lou to overpay on deals. We need a young GM who's aggressive and not his son. I don't know if Lou Lamoriello loses trades. I know we're not feeling too hot about the Bo Horvat trade, but the Jean-Gabriel Pageau one has worked out. The Kyle Palmieri one has been fine, if not pretty good. I don't think he loses very many trades. He doesn't make the best trades. I'm not gonna lie. Like Kevin Fiala would have been amazing. I'm not sure why we didn't do that, but I don't even know if we had a chance to. But and I also don't know if younger equals better either. Like Dubas is young, and I don't know if Dubas is doing a good job there, right? Like he did a good job drafting and developing guys like Matthews, Marner, Nylander, but he's not able to build a contender. Like he's just not able to do it. So, although it is Toronto, so maybe he, grain of salt there, I suppose. AJ, Dobson should play with Pelech all the time. He isn't great defensively. Yep. Yep. Don't use him as a defensive defenseman. That's why Matt and I don't like the Sebastian Aho Noah Dobson pairing. Because who's playing defense? Neither of those guys are defensive defensemen. They're both very offensive defensemen. And they're not very physical, specifically down low or in front of the net. So what are you doing? It doesn't work. Get him with Pelech, please. Max, is Ross Johnston days done? Barely see him against other teams' goons. Yes, please. Please let the Ross Johnston experiment end. I'm glad he got paid. He's going to get paid well, right? He's going to make like $4.4 million plus the 2 he already made. So that's quite a bit of money for him. And he doesn't have to fight anymore and, injure himself, hopefully. But I really do think this is the end of Ross Johnston. Sam, I miss the days when Pelech and Pulock were the Isles' number 1 D pair. Yeah. I don't know what happened to them. They have both fallen off, and I don't know where they've gone. They are not the same players, and it's not just this year. They weren't really the same players last year either. Something happened, and they're struggling for form right now. AP, I'd be Frito as the next GM. Or I'd be Frito? I assume that means I'd bet Frito as next GM, 100. When Lou dropped that compliment about him and Fasching, I knew it was the plan. Yeah, I would also bet that Chris Lamoriello is the next GM of the New York Islanders. Unless some better GM with a much larger resume becomes available, like Lou Lamoriello 2.0 basically, it's going to be Chris Lamoriello in my opinion as well, AP. On point, Devils up 4-0. Yes, let's get a scoreboard update, shall we? So the Devils are up 4-0, at least when On Point made that comment. That was a little while ago, so let's catch up here. Devils still up 4-0. End of the second period, Buffalo, Florida tied at 1. And what are the shots here? Pretty close, 25-22 in favor of the Florida Panthers. So thank you. Please update us with scoreboard watches throughout the stream. We've got another 20-25 minutes to go, so still quite a bit of time. AJ, I personally like Holmstrom and think he just hasn't played in the right role with Barzal out. That's fair. I think he should play third line next year. I do think there were better players after, but I don't mind him. See, that is a reasonable take. You can say, they probably shouldn't have taken him, but we have him, so let's try to get the best out of him. And you're right. I think the best position for him is third line. He is a Josh Bailey player. This is what Josh Bailey was when he was drafted. This is exactly how he played. He is a Josh Bailey mold Play him like a Josh Bailey. He's not a top line player. Maybe once he turns 28, he'll be ready for some top line minutes, but it's going to be a slow process for Simon Holmstrom. Play him on the third line. Anthony, Lou already made a deal with ownership when he came to the Isles that his son would take over. You know Lou will be in his ear the entire time. No, thank you. See, that's a fair criticism because you're right. Like, can Lou step away from the game? I think they're going to pry him from the game when he's dead. He's just not going to be able to leave the game of hockey. And so he's always going to be a special advisor or something or other. Now, I'm not going to say that he made a deal, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did. It really wouldn't. Jeremy, hey Mitch, do you catch the Bridgeport game today? How did Travis Mitchell look if you did see the game? I did watch it, most of it. I went for a walk with my dog around noon to go. I walked by my kids' school with my dog, so I missed a little bit of the second period. But he looked fine. I liked his physicality, which isn't something that I thought he had a lot of beforehand. So it's nice to see that's coming out. But more to see. It's one game. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen Fulp or we haven't seen Krieger yet. We've seen Pavanka, but not Krieger, and I don't really know why. Andre, what do you think Holmstrom's long-term future with the team is? Third-line player? Traded? Third-line player. He's a third-line player and maybe gets traded as a piece, kind of like Anthony Beauvillier. I said that in English, my God. I don't think he's anything more than a third-line player. Maybe in the right situation, to fill in. He plays on the second line and things go well. But he's definitely a third-line player. Sam, I'd like to see a former Islander as the GM. Okay, is there a former Islander you have in mind? I'm just trying to think, is there one out there that could do it? I'm sure there's someone, but I can't think of who it is. Anthony, he gives up first rounders like it's candy. Overpaid for Peugeot. I wouldn't say he overpaid for Peugeot. And Palmieri first and something can't remember. He got Palmieri and Travis Zajac. That's why he sent the first. And Palmieri was having a good year. Peugeot was having a good year. I would not say that's overpaying. I really wouldn't. Can we have 1 or 2 years where we keep our first rounder? Overpaid for Horvat. I also wouldn't say we overpaid for Horvat. If Anthony Beauvillier wasn't playing the way he's playing right now in Vancouver, no one would say we overpaid for Horvat. I don't care if we trade first round picks, so long as the players we're bringing in help the team now. Trade as many first round picks as you want. Bring players in that help. And Peugeot certainly helps. Palmieri certainly helps. He's had his injury issues. He's had his dryness, if you will. Or dry spells, I should say. I don't know if he's got whatever, the dry psoriasis or something. It's perfectly fine. I think the trades have been perfectly fine. I'm not saying he stole anyone, basically, or won the trades, but I don't think he lost them either. On point, I bet Lou and Malkin / Ledecky had an agreement in principle in place when he was brought in that when he stepped down after 4 to 5 years, his son would get a shot as the next GM. I don't doubt it. I wouldn't say that is accurate. I hope not. I hope that the agreement would be that you're going to interview my son. You're going to give him a shot to interview for the job, or have a chance. That's the word I was struggling to find. Have a chance to get the job. But it would strike me as odd that Ledecky and Malkin would be like, blank check, give us all your demands and we'll meet all of them. Specifically after 4 to 5 years, like they basically went through that with Gar Snow. Why would they get into the same boat again, right? So Max says, Bodie Wild still a possibility or moving on? Moving on. Look, Bodie Wild is fine at the ECHL level, and that's not good enough to get you anywhere else. He's fine at the ECHL level. He's moving on. Once that contract is done, and I think it's this year. Let me just bring it up here. I'm pretty sure he's on the last year of that ELC. If I scroll down, sorry if I give you seizure for all that scrolling. Bodie Wild, final year of his contract. If we click on him to get the actual stats, 14 points in 53 games at the ECHL level. We're good, thanks. I think moving on. Andre, there's no way if this team misses the playoffs, the ownership can sell the fan base on Chris Lamoriello. There are Ray Shiro, Dale Talon, and other candidates. Yeah, that's true. I've said, and even specifically to Andre, like if the Islanders don't make the playoffs, Lou Lamoriello, there's no way you can bring him back. There's no way. Lou went all in, moving Barry Trotz. You made a lot of moves, and it didn't get you to the playoffs. You missed the 1 year, and that was, I don't know what the hell was happening there, and why you decided to go and keep Green and Char and play them big minutes, but it didn't work out. You can't do that in back-to-back years. You cannot. These owners want linear growth, and they're not getting it. So he can't come back if they don't make the playoffs next year. Anthony, Holmstrom is a bottom six, so we have too many bottom six players. He does not move the needle whatsoever. I wouldn't agree with not moving the needle. You need bottom six players, and I think he's a fine one. I want a young GM, like the assistant GM from Tampa Bay, Detroit. Okay, can you tell me why you want a young one? Is it just an age thing? You don't like the old GM, so you want a younger one? Because just because he's young doesn't necessarily mean he's going to have some sort of avant-garde new way of thinking. They might be more open to it, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be better. But I'm okay with it as long as it's a good candidate and does good things. Like Rob Blake is technically young for a GM, and I love what he's doing in Los Angeles. I love it. Picking up Kevin Fiala, excellent. Jonas Corposalo, hell of a move. Even when they're losing, he's a 940 goalie for LA. So I love what Rob Blake is doing in Los Angeles. If the Islanders can find someone like that, let's go. I'm totally fine with that. Sam, knowing how Horvat has been playing, they probably could have gotten Horvat for a first, Bo, and maybe a second or third. Yeah, but like hindsight is 2020. You got a guy scoring, what was it, like 34, 33 goals through half the year. You're going to have to pay for that. Pardon me. You're just going to have to pay for it. And so we paid, and I think it's a fair price. I still think it's a fair price. Bo is playing well, but that has been awful for Vancouver. They wanted Bo that we had. They got the opposite Bo. That is awful for them. They've been swept out of the Connor Bedard sweepstakes, not single-handedly because of Beauvillier, but basically. No, that's the same one. Anthony says, problem is with the first rounders, you trade them every year for players that are around 30 years old. I wouldn't have a problem if we were trading them for guys in the early to mid-20s. Well, we did exactly that for Alex Romanov. He was 22 years old when we traded for him. And the other guys, sure, but we would trade it for guys in their peak, right? So we're not trading for guys on the back half or on the back nine. We're trading for guys in their peak or 22-year-old defensemen. So we're kind of doing that. And then Anthony says, I want a young GM because the NHL has changed style-wise. Sure. But again, it doesn't necessarily take a young GM to recognize the NHL has changed. Right? Like Barry Trotz isn't young, but he's a GM for the Nashville Predators. I'm fine with it with a young GM. If you're going to find me someone young or old who's going to make changes to this team that not respects is the right word, but is in lockstep with the change in style in the NHL and as in a faster league, a more skilled league, then let's go. I'm totally fine with that. But I don't think that we need to just be like, we need a young one. If he happens to be young, cool, fine. I want a guy who's going to go for skill and speed. That's what I want. Anthony Muscarella. Sorry if I mispronounced that, Anthony. Do you think Parise retires after this season? And if so, who would fill the bottom six spot? Girondeau full-time? Ishikov? I don't think that. The only way that Zach Parise retires this year is if he doesn't get a contract from the New York Islanders. It's the only way. He said today to Andrew Gross, like, I plan on coming back next year. Now, he doesn't say I plan on coming back to the Islanders, but he wants to continue playing. But I don't think he's going to just go like, I'm going to play for Arizona, right? Screw that. Like, I want to go for cups. He hasn't won one yet. And with the way he's playing, maybe another team comes in and says, yeah, we'll give you league minimum to play for us, like the Bostons of the world or something. But I think he comes back to the island, and if he doesn't, then I don't think he comes back at all. Andre says, Horvat deal was a fair deal. Peugeot deal is fair. Palmieri is too. No issues there. They need to address a dynamic puck-moving D-man. But most importantly, they have to fix the power play. Oh my God, yes. Oh my God. I don't know what's wrong with the power play because it's gone through, what, 3 power play coaches and 2 NHL coaches? And they still haven't figured it out. But we had a streak, right? We had this. I want to find it. I'm trying to figure out when the Islanders' power play was good. I believe it was December. Was it not like December through January? Our power play was just ridiculously good. So if we go to stats, so I'm just follow along with me if you will. Stats. I'm going to go teams. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. If we go by game, I believe from December through the end of January, our power play was outstanding. If we get stats, ranked by power play, no, it was not. It definitely was not. I was so wrong. I was so dead wrong. What period of time was it? There was a period this year where the Islanders power play, there it is. From November, the month of November, the Islanders power play, 31.8%. Just stupid efficient. And then it fell off a cliff. We saw that from December through January, 7.9%. That's just... Whew. Oh, I got beer in the eye. God. Wow, yeah, that was a good laugh. Sam says probably Durando to fill in for Zach Parise, which I would take. I would take that for sure. Our power play is Brock Nelson. Just give him the puck every time. Yeah, without Matthew Barzal, our power play is definitely Brock Nelson, which is bad. Not because Brock Nelson's a bad player, it's just that we only have one option. So with only one option, it's so easy to cover. I know that Lane was practicing a lot of puck movement and moving your feet, which is great. It's just sad that we're game, 76, I think? No, 78. And we're just being like, hey, move your feet on the power play. That's basic stuff. Sorry. That should be basic stuff. Move your feet. Create separation. Get those defenders to move. You have a man advantage. You have space advantage. Use it. And they were not. And that's a problem. So Anthony, we're at 9 o'clock now. I'm going to go for another 5 minutes and then we're good. Anthony says, we'll never upgrade this roster without making... You are very negative right now. We'll never upgrade this roster without making drastic moves. Tell me, look at this roster. Where do we get more skill, speed, and scoring on offense? Your top 2 lines are set next year. Yeah, but we've seen this top 2 line work. We've seen these guys perform. Where are we getting speed, skill, and scoring? Matthew Barzal, speed and skill. Anyone else? Yeah, sure, they're getting older. You're not going to, I'm not going to say that they're not getting older. We've seen them perform well. We just need to supplement that. And I do think that we will go and make some big moves. Look, Lou Lamoriello hasn't been shy to do that. We needed defensive help. He went and got a young defensive defenseman. I would hope that he got someone like Clayton Keller or was in on someone else. And I'm sure he was, but he wasn't willing to pay what they were offering or were looking for, I guess. But I'm not so... what's the word I'm looking for here? Strong in my language when it comes to we will never upgrade the roster. We will. We have. He's been doing it every year. Every year, Lou Lamoriello has upgraded the roster. It may not be the way that you want him to upgrade the roster, but he has upgraded the roster. And for a while, it worked. It just didn't a couple of years ago, and that was a wild year. That was not a good year. I don't know what the hell Lou Lamoriello was doing that year. Max, next year's first line, Horvat, Barzal, fill in the blank. Whoop-a-lie. I really want Clayton Keller. I don't know if he's available. I keep bringing up his name, but I assume anyone in Arizona is available. I just assume they're available because they're in Arizona and they're still tanking and the guy's putting up a point per game production. He is signed until the sun explodes, so I don't think they're going to be so quick to move him. And if they do, it's going to be for a lot, but it's going to be worth it. 82 points, 78 games, 36 goals. go all in. That's who I want. Who will be there? I don't know. We could say Wallstrom, but that's a lot of righties on that line. So it might just be Lee for now. Andre says, the power play problems are personnel. The reality is, even when the power play was excellent, it's not sustainable and will tank. Barzal loss is huge, but Dobson hasn't taken the next step. So that's true. Dobson's, it's obviously not emergence, but regression. There we go. Dobson's regression has been a killer blow for the Islanders. They expected a better year from him, not just this year, but better from last year as well, to build on last year. So I'm not really sure where this goes. I assume Dobson's going to be fine next year. This is just an aberration, but they need Dobson to be better. Again, the power play isn't just because of Dobson, but it's certainly not helping it by any stretch. And then Anthony says, you can't move Palmieri to Lee. Your third line will most likely be, again, Parise, Peugeot, and Fasching. Yep. Well, you can move. You can probably not Lee, but you can probably move. Oh, I had this open the entire time. Sorry, guys. I didn't realize I had this open the entire time. You can probably move Palmieri. Where is he there? He's only got 2 years left on his deal. So you could probably package that somehow, specifically if he's doing well. There's always an Arizona looking to hit the floor. So I wouldn't be so quick to say you can't move Kyle Palmieri. It's going to be harder, obviously. It's not going to be easy to do. And I'm not sitting here advocating for it either. I'm perfectly fine with Kyle Palmieri and what he's doing. Where am I? Sam says, trade Bailey Mayfield, a 2025 third for a solid defenseman like Klingberg or maybe Hornick. Yeah, Hornick would have been great. I think he's got more potential. Klingberg is just, he's on the later portion of his career, and I to Anthony's point, I don't want to bring in more vets. We've got enough vets as it is. I want to bring in more youth, and I'm sure Lou sees that too. I don't want to bring in someone who's, Klingberg is 29, 30 years old already? I can search it right here. Klingberg. John, he's 30 years old, turning 31 this year in August. So I don't want to bring in a 31-year-old who's going to need a big contract at the end of it. So let him stay in Minnesota. Oops. Oh my God, I don't realize that I have it on, and I don't know what the hell is going on in terms of my screen sometimes. I should probably move it here so I can kind of see it a little bit better. So last couple of questions here. Another year older Lee, Nelson Palm. We need a top line scorer, not a defenseman. I'm perfectly fine. Let's get a top line scorer. That's why I keep mentioning Clayton Keller. Avedon says Keller is the guy who made Kiefer Bellows a first round pick. Yep. Yep. So, Yarpers. And then Anthony says, Mitch, do you remember Lou is too loyal beyond reason, especially to his players? I don't know about that. I wouldn't go and say he's not loyal, but I wouldn't go out and say he's definitely too loyal. That's something that was an issue back in Los Angeles. If you're gonna mention the whole Andy Green, Zdeno Chara thing, to be fair, we weren't getting much for those guys anyway, so he just did the value to the organization and keeping those guys and doing what they wanted via the trade deadline was greater than whatever pick we could have got. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, Sam's question on Tikkanen is going to be the last one. And then Anthony says, sorry, I won't deal Palms, Lee, Bailey, or guys like that. Yeah, I think he won't deal Lee, that's for sure. But Bailey and Palms, Bailey for sure. Palmieri, probably. I'd give it a 50-50 on Palmieri, 80% on Bailey, 30% on Lee. And then Sam says, could Tikkanen ever be an AHL goalie? I don't know. I haven't really been that keen on what I saw at the ECHL level. He's fine. He's massive. But he still needs to work out on his positioning, which is a big problem for big goalies. Like, that's their game, is being in the right position. And he's not always in the right position. So I don't know if he can be an AHL goalie. I wouldn't bank on it. So, boom. I'll end it there. It's been an hour. And my voice, I can already feel it starting to go. So thank you everyone for joining me. I'm going to do another one next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you for joining me. It's 5-0 Devils. Let's go. And thank you.